Okay, so we are going to do a second episode of this crazy podcast that me and Matt have decided to embark on. So I guess some intros are in order. I'm Kyle. You can find me at kyle.boehm, which is pronounced Boehm Photography on Instagram. So again, that's kyle.boehm.photography. My partner here is Matt Parrish. You can find him at _Matt Parrish on Instagram. We're going to do a podcast talking about bird photography, gear, photography, tangents of many descriptions. And hopefully you listened to the first one and gave us some feedback. So hopefully on this one, we can iron out all those problems. First things first, Matt's got a new mic.
Hi, everyone. Oh, isn't that sound so much better?
Listen to that. Yeah.
Oh, so clean. Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah, it does make a difference. I've been kind of messing around myself with it, and as much as Kyle tried to convince me to get one for Pod 1, I had to make sure that the pod was going to work, and we were going to gel, and we did. And yes, we listened loud and clear, and we got Matt a mic.
Yeah, and I just remembered another tradition that I have to do according to you.
And there it is.
So I had the fizzy water snap of awesome. The beginning. Well, we had mentioned last time that we were going out on an excursion, and we would hope to have the podcast out by the time we did that, but it happened after. So I think we're going to talk about first the excursion that we went on.
Yeah.
Where'd we go, Matt?
We met up bright and early in the morning, how I prefer to shoot. We were there about 5:30, and we went to Tommy Thompson Park in Toronto, Ontario. And we met up with Kyle, myself, and Kyle's friend Will Robertson, I believe, and my buddy Teddy, and we all met up and tried our luck for some shorebirds along the, I guess it would be the west side of TTP, Tommy Thompson. We'll call it TTP, but Tommy Thompson Park.
Yep. You want to know what's kind of embarrassing?
Sure.
I didn't realize that I had met Teddy before until far too late in the trip.
You know what the funny thing is as well, like he may have clued in because he might be brighter than we are. But even when I'm like, oh, my buddy Teddy might be there, I didn't clue in that you and I met him at the exact same time.
Yeah,
at Colonel Sam's.
Yeah, at another park in Toronto.
Yeah, that's actually funny. Yeah,
I was like, this guy looks familiar, and I don't know why. Like, I don't think I've seen him before.
We had already walked out about 5 kilometers before we actually met up with Teddy. He was a little bit behind us. On the way out, we did hear that screech owl, the eastern screech, just inside in the tree there, which we did see fly away. So we did right off the bat. We saw or heard some interesting things.
That's one of my favorite sounds of the evening is the screech. I don't hear it a ton, but there's a couple that live in the park near me. Yeah.
It was I didn't expect to hear it. It was kind of cool to see it just right off the trail, right on a tree, right off to the trail, which is like a very it's a paved, well-used trail. Lots of bikes, lots of runners, lots of families, and we're there early in the morning and nobody's there. We're the first ones out there, but it was cool to just be walking along and hearing that familiar sound.
I think even the branches overhang the trail. Like I think it was right there. But obviously, we got there at I think 5:45, 5:50. Yeah. There's not a ton of people out at that point.
No, I don't think we saw our first person outside of ourselves or meeting up with Teddy until probably 7:30.
Yeah, there was a couple of people out when we were laying down on the beach.
Yeah,
eventually.
Yeah, for the shorebs. Yeah, there was how many were out there? 4 or 5. There was probably 6 or 7 of us out there at one time.
We were definitely first, but then there's a few more people that showed up. A couple of birders with a tripod and a scope.
There were more cormorants than
alive
anything. Yeah, when I like to go shorebirding, it's usually down and dirty and in the mud with them, and there were lots of cormorant carcasses that we had to maneuver to get into those areas to get the shot. Which was interesting. I never really noticed it before. I don't know if it's something that happens every year or it's something that by the time I get there, either they've been all picked off or covered in snow. I'm not sure. I more or less go in the winter, so it was the first time kind of in the fall for myself.
Yeah, the first time we ever met was at TTP in the winter.
Yeah.
And you do see them like towards the edge of the water, but they're usually frozen and kind of stuck in ice or sand.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're very prominent.
Yeah.
I have a picture of you laying at the edge of the water with your camo on.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think the most prominent thing in that picture is a cormorant wing in the lower left. Just like,
right beside me.
no, it's closer to me than you.
Oh, it's like
but
foreground.
It's hard to see you, because that's why I took the picture. It's because you're wearing camo.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the foreground is this wing.
Yeah, we should put that up on the pod Instagram.
Yeah,
the camo.
I don't think I'm gonna use it for anything. I'm not gonna frame that one. Might be a good one. I don't know.
Yeah. So we did get out there. We got out there first light, and there was sun, which is always good. The thing about sun is, like, when you have pure sun and no clouds, is the shooting gets harsh real quick. I certainly noticed that. I try to readjust and maybe change my angle a little bit. And I like to tend to shoot into the sun by that point. I like to get the first morning kind of light before the sun actually really starts to hit them hard. I'll shoot the front lit stuff, and then as soon as it gets too harsh and the shadows kind of change, I go to the other side, which I noticed. I was looking at you guys over there using the front lit. So
yeah, I would say that one of my weak points is not remembering what light is or where it's going, which I understand is a pretty major part of photography, I guess. And
only a little bit.
Yeah,
don't let people fool you.
And then, like, I'm getting freaking 20 million candle lumen power straight on a subject in the most amber orange light, which is good-ish. But for me, I don't mess around or play with the colors too much. So I'd like my final sort of thing that I post to the world to be sort of as accurate to the color of the thing as possible.
Right.
Which is, it's just not something I have got comfortable with yet, is kind of artistic color playing with. So I didn't really like many of those pictures. So after the trip, I'm scrolling through all my pictures and I'm going, these ones are all too orange. These ones are all too yellow. These ones are out of focus. These ones are, nothing's happening in it. One of the things I like to do, and one of the things we didn't really touch on this last time, but kind of a motto that kind of runs through my head when I'm taking pictures and kind of what I say to people, why I do it, is I want to show people birds. I want to show birds doing what they would do if I wasn't there. And they do often just stand around, but that's not necessarily the most interesting thing. So I'd like if they're foraging or if they're poking around in the waves or whatever. But at the same time, like, I don't like when the colors are all off. So I found that those ones in the morning, I didn't really like many of them. There's a couple that were fine. And actually, like you just mentioned, you shooting the other way, when I shot some of the birds down kind of to the right of where we were, not directly the direction you were, but kind of parallel, I liked those ones more because the color was a little almost muted, and they just looked better to my eye, not necessarily to other people's. And ultimately, it's the only thing I can do with my pictures is like what I like. And then the rest of the time, actually shortly after that is when I discovered that my Canon R8 wouldn't turn off, which was an interesting problem. And I don't know if you're like me, as soon as you discover an issue with any of your gear or anything, it's just like the only thing you can think about. Whether it be my car, my headphones, my camera.
Yeah, it kind of consumes you. Yeah, it kind of consumes you. Takes you out of the moment. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So then for a little while prime bird things are happening, I'm taking the battery in and out. I'm taking the memory card out. I try to reset. I took the lens on and off. And it, like, having a camera stuck on isn't really the worst problem. Like, it still took pictures fine.
Unless it's an R8. Because there's only one way to get worse battery performance is that for it to stay on.
Yeah. And you know me, like I'm not going to turn on any of the power saving settings or whatever. I'm just like, I want this thing on all the time.
You got your wish.
Yeah. Yeah, literally exactly what I want. And then I'm like, this is actually the worst. Yeah, it's one of those be careful what you wish for kind of.
What you wish for,
scenarios.
exactly. Yeah.
And immediately I was like, I got what I wanted. But so I'm messing with this stuff and I'm kind of walking around and I decide that I'm just going to like pull the battery and just use the R7. And then I don't know if, did you have the R10 when you had your 800?
Yes, for about 2 or 3 months. Kind of deciding, whether it was worthy and worthwhile to shoot on APS-C. I'd be interested what you think.
It's quite hard. It's very narrow. It's a very narrow field of view, and it's especially with the R7 because it has like less pixels and stuff. Mm-hmm. You need all the light. So like I should have been using it almost in the morning, like when we were talking about that really harsh light. That's all of the light. So like it kind of worked a little better.
Right.
But then you guys are laying down, I think shooting some of the Sanderlings up on that flat part.
Right. Yep.
And I laid down and even like farther back than you guys. And I looked at them like, geez, like they're huge in the frame.
Yeah. Right.
And I kind of got up and scuffled around and moved. And by that time they'd wandered off somewhere else. So.
Mm-hmm. I find in that situation, because you said everything's so much bigger, also in the same respect, everything's so much more amplified when it comes to heat distortion, movement from the bird itself, movement from yourself. The ISO itself just seems to be affected more. Obviously, it just doesn't have that performance. I find it was really good when, because the minimum focus distance of the 800 is like 19 feet. So the APS-C cameras almost can be like a shoulder and head, or if on a larger bird, maybe a headshot type style lens where you go right in for that tight close up because you have that added crop. Whereas you just can't get close enough with any medium to small size bird on the R8 that it's more of a full size portrait with a little bit more I wouldn't say landscape, but just a little bit more of a scene included. So that's kind of how I went about it when I had both cameras with that lens. And ultimately, it wasn't enough for me to keep the R10 mainly for that. I actually think the R10 and the 100-400 is a better close-up lens than the R10 and the 800, if you can believe it. It just retains so much more sharpness and detail, and it's such a light kit that you can get in really, really close and tight, and it's not obnoxious. Not that the 800 is, but it just seems like an easier camera to wield in tighter areas, and it does perform pretty well.
Yeah, and like we talked last time about how I like to have stuff. Mm-hmm. So part of this trip is I was trying to decide if it's kind of doable to carry two kits, because I get dumb concerns and thoughts, and I was like, I can't focus on anything closer than 20 feet or 19 feet with this 800. So I'm going to leave that on the R8 for most of my shooting, and then if stuff comes close, I want the R7 with the 1-4 beside me.
Yep. It's a good 1-2 punch. It really is. Yeah.
Like it's for both, I would say, budget and for performance. Like we could argue all day, and we have, and we probably will.
We'll continue. Yeah.
The R10 versus R7, like, and stuff like that. Both are great options for sure on the 1-4 for people of all ages or skill levels or intentions with the cameras. But what I was doing was I wanted to compare and shoot either one when the opportunity came up. I ran into some problems because obviously I'm going to. One, I would say, was speed of which I can switch. So I'm shooting with the 800, and then Sanderling comes close. Mm-hmm. I actually got a picture of Will was off to my one side, and there's a sanderling between me and him. So I got a picture of like a log, a sanderling on it, and then like the end of his 1 to 500, just like on the side.
Right.
This is how close they get. Like they, like you were saying, they'd have run over your feet a couple times.
They do. Yeah. Yeah.
It's that camo. It works too well, man.
It's true. I look like an idiot out there. You'll know me, like even if you don't, because you're like, who's that idiot? It's not like from the podcast.
Who's this idiot standing in the middle of the parking lot in camo?
I'm the only one in Toronto with camo usually.
Yeah, actually, my neck of the woods is way more common.
Yeah, well, me too. Like I wear it to the store, no problem. Nobody bats an eye. But in the city, you stick out a little bit, especially in an urban park.
Yeah.
Yeah. Duck hunting season's not open yet. Well, I mean, it is now, but.
So, anyway, sanderling comes close, and I put the R8 and 800 down, and then in my head I'm going, do I want to put it in the sand, or should I kind of prop it against this log? So meanwhile I'm trying to put it somewhere. Sanderling's coming closer. Grab the R7 and the 1 to 4, turn it on because obviously I'm not prepared. By the time I get all situated, it's either run past me or ducked somewhere else. So now I've also missed the close shots. So I had this plan, and I didn't, multiple times, wasn't able to literally pull the trigger on anything that was within range. So now I'm in my head like, is it worth having both of them? Like, should I do something else? Do I need the 200-800 because it has a closer focusing distance, also has the 800? Mm-hmm. How do I get the 2-800? I got to sell this, and this. Do I want to sell this, and this? Immediately after the trip, I'm like, Matt, I want the 200-800. Like, we got to talk about this. He's like, you sure? Do you need it? I'm like, why? Standard Monday morning conversation.
I did end up, in the end saying, you know what, if you wanted to go down to a one body, one lens kit, it's hard to do much better. So, I mean, I can kind of understand, the thought process.
When you owned the 2-8 for a little bit.
I did. So. I had it for about 3 weeks. I actually was able to snag a copy from Canon Canada through their Canon shop. And it came the next day. I had one on order from Henry's, and they're like, oh, this was back in May. And they're like, oh, July at the earliest. And then I was told that there was one in stock, or at least some in stock, and I got it from Canon Canada the next day. So I did have it for about 3 weeks. And ultimately, right off the bat, I loved it. It did. It did replace both lenses. The funny thing is, I needed to replace both lenses. I was only going to go to a one camera or one lens kit. But do you know how hard it is to actually want to let go of the 100-400 when it's so versatile and small and you can take it a lot of different places? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things. It's a little bit of a compromise. And I know there's a few people out there that are shooting 600 f4s and stuff going, really? You think that's big? But when you're used to something and you're used to a type of style, it is nice to have something that's a lot more compact that you can take on hikes and walks with your family and your young kids. And it was always in the back of my mind that I'd have to get rid of both lenses. And was I going to be happy with the price, even though I knew it did replace both lenses?
Yeah. How against the 1-4 was I when we first started talking?
You were more against the 800. Just because the F11, but I want to say that you weren't a believer of the Plastic Fantastic 100-4.
Nope.
It doesn't matter what type of quality I showed you or what type of technical skill I would show you with it or how artsy I could get with it. It did not matter. You were dead set against it. Why are you going to go from Sony to one of their, still well-used lenses of the 200-600 and go to a plastic 100-400 that might melt in rain? I mean, there's obviously trade-offs. I get it, but it's a tough sell. It's not when you use it and you see the results. It is a tough sell when you kind of just see it on paper, feel it, maybe even feel it. It's not it's very, very well built for plastic. If that's saying anything, it is. It really is. They're doing a really good job. It really is. It's like the Ford trucks. It's like military grade plastic. You know what I mean?
It's GM dashboard tough.
Yeah, there you go. So of course it's a tough sell,
Yeah, and like what I wanted to when I was toying about switching over to Canon again, I had like you're right, I had the Sony 200 to 600, which I really did like. And like I knew about its faults and its like minimum focusing magnification kind of shenanigans with the focus breathing. I'm using air quotes, but you can't see me. And what was funny is at the time I also had an ADD. I also have ADD, but I had an ADD.
ATD.
The ATD?
Like Dwayne and his 40D, you know, like the ATD.
Oh, right.
He loves
ATD.
the 40D and the 400.56.
Yeah. So I had the 80D and the old 300 F4.
Mm-hmm. It's very Dwayne of you, by the way. It is very Dwayne of you.
Well, that's like when I started bird photography, like I found Dwayne and I found Jan and I found like another guy. Can't think of his name right now. He's a British guy. He used to shoot the 400.56 with the 1DX, this massive body and this like tiny, relatively tiny lens.
Yeah.
But I had those, and I had heard about this focus breathing magnification issue thing, meaning that at close minimum focusing distance to the 200 to 600, if you're at 600, the field of view you're seeing isn't actually like as close to 600 mils as it could be.
Mm-hmm.
So in one of the first things was like, I want to see this kind of for myself, because I can watch videos all day and I'll choose to believe some of the stuff and maybe not some of the other ones. And it's not that I think these people making videos necessarily have ulterior motives or anything, but I like to see things for myself. So upstairs, actually right here behind me, I had a ladder. I set up the 2 to 6 on my A9, and then the ADD with the 300 F4. I just pointed it at something over there. And 600 and at 300 on the same ladder, the field of view was like at close to minimum focus distance, was way closer. Like the subject in the frame was way closer to what they should have been. And I was like, that's kind of annoying. Like if I have 600, like I want
all 600.
The bird's supposed to be big. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I did a little researching into it, and it seems like that's sort of a symptom with internally focusing lenses, and on something that has a relatively wide range of 200 to 600, that kind of gets exaggerated a little bit. Right. If it's like an internally like 70 to 200, I don't think that focus breathing or magnification issue is not as present. But I think just the range of the 2 to 6 makes it more present. And yeah, I was like, that was one of the light switches that I was like, okay, maybe switch to Canon.
That was the first thing. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the first things. All right, now switch. And then we spent months probably talking about my options, because I wanted that 600 range.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah, every day.
Literally every day.
Every morning, I think I'd send, like you mentioned last time, be like, Matt, I have an idea.
Yeah, I think you started like starting the conversations with Matt, you're gonna kill me, or Matt, don't hate me. I guess you got to the point, where it was like every day.
Every time I send you a message, I still want to start the text like that. Matt, don't hate me, but I've come up with a new plan.
Well, now you have a bunch of other listeners now that can hate you instead of just me. If that's the prerogative, if that's the
No, what this is doing is it's giving me groupthink, maybe.
Yeah,
so if
for
I
sure.
get some opinions from people, I can start to. But so anyway, so I like to compare stuff. You can see from when we're at TTP, and I have my 800 sitting next to my 1-4 on the R7. And the R8 kind of sitting there. And then, like I just said, I have the 200 to 800, or the 200 to 600 with my A9 with my ADD and 300, comparing those. I usually have 2 of most things, because I'm like, what is this thing? Does this thing over here do it better? I have mentioned it before, but I really like pocket knives, and I've been into pocket knives for a long time, kind of off and on. My grandfather, my papa, carried a pocket knife, and it just kind of one day. It was funny. Like, this isn't anything about bird photography, but I remember just being at work one day and going, like, trying to open something and going, like, I should have a knife. And then that day, I literally after work drove to, it was Canadian Tire, I think, and just bought like a fairly inexpensive pocket knife. And probably from that day till now, every day I have a pocket knife on me.
You did say something there. How often do you need a pocket knife? It's pretty often. I'm always looking for something to open something up.
Yeah.
And I'm not a pocket knife guy.
Right. And most people are like sort of afraid, or like, obviously it's a knife, like, which I understand. I'm not going and pointing it at individuals or animals or anything. But what I really like to do is when I'm at work, because sometimes they'll come up and I'll be like, yeah, I got a knife. Like, someone will come over, like, do you have a knife? Like, and like, it's the most ridiculous question they've ever put to someone. I'm like, oh yeah, totally. And what's funny is this is how far into it I have. I have my knife, and I have the knife that I'm going to give to somebody.
you have a loner.
Yeah. Literally in front of me, I have my good knife and a Swiss Army knife in case for some reason someone asks me for one of them. But I like to use it not in like a malicious way around people. So like, I might be in a meeting or just doing something at work, and I have to open a box or cut a zip tie off something, or like, I never pry.
Somebody. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, give me a raise. But I like to show it as a tool amongst people, so that they're not. I feel like that it shows them that I'm not a lunatic and I'm just like a tool. But where I was going with this was that I have and had a metric shit ton of them. Not as many as some people. My collection never grew past, I think, about 30 or so. I think I'm down to mid-20s. But I had a few that were like top shelf. Well, relative. It depends on who you ask. But for me, top shelf. Mm-hmm. And I did have to sell some of them to fund the 2 to 600, actually. And but I've always compared them. So I'd get a new one, and I'd be like, it does this different than the one I had before. It's not necessarily that it's better, it's just different. And it was different aspects of the knives that I would be looking for, sort of my favorite or my perfect version of it. And through that, I'm now to a point where I can kind of look at a new knife that's coming out, or I know the brands I like, or I know what I want. I'm like, I will like that knife, or I will not like that one. You had brought up last time the kind of the concept, which I've heard before, that comparison is the thief of joy. Mm-hmm. I understand the sentiment of that, and that, like, I think it's trying to say don't compare yourself to other people. But for me, comparison is like part of the joy. I like want to know that this thing does something different than that thing. And that's part of hobbies for me. I don't think it's that way for you.
No, because there's certainly objective things out there that are better than what I shoot. So objectively, if you look at it from that sense, comparison certainly is the thief of joy, because if something is not within reach, or it's just you can't make work, you can't obtain something financially, whatever the reason is, if you're not willing to for the investment, if you're stuck on wanting that thing because you think or know it's going to do something better for you, then I don't know if I think you're losing joy. I don't know if there is joy in that. It's kind of like the best camera is the one in your hand. I know it's cliche. Mm-hmm. Right? It is very cliche. It's but yeah, to me it's like worrying about what something else can do better for you when you still probably have more in the tank to give yourself with what you currently have, and also comparing yourself to somebody that may have the camera gear that you want. You give that guy that you're salivating over his photos, if you give him your gear, more than likely he's going to give you some quality shots that you're just as impressed with. So
Wouldn't it be awesome if you can just buy a new thing and that would be perfect and all of your pictures would be immaculate?
for sure. I think a lot less people would do the hobby though, because there'd be no reason. It's kind of like if you put the game. I know we say we put the game on easy. We talked about this the last podcast.
Immediately.
But what if you could just? You played Skyrim? You played a lot of Skyrim. Have you ever played Skyrim with God mode?
No.
Well, you'll put it down after 10 minutes because there's no challenge. There's no. So if that was the case, if that was that perfect world, I don't know if there'd be as many people that would be interested in it. It's almost the pursuit that makes it interesting. I certainly think getting back to the comparison of the Thief of Joy, I see a lot of people lose joy in comparing photos or someone suggesting a photo might be better when it comes to contests. Some people just can't handle it.
Yeah, it's all subjective. And I think for me, that's fine. But you look at more objective or like
typically, yeah,
statistical differences as opposed to because we've I'll say like, oh, this camera feels great in my hand, and you're like, does it take better pictures? I'm like, no.
Well, I also base it off price point. So it's like
sure.
R6 II versus R8. It's like, does it feel better in hands? Yeah, probably. Certainly if you have bigger hands.
Like we talked about last time, what's that rubber feel like? I got to know how that rubber feels.
I haven't used rubbers in years, buddy.
That's a different conversation.
But yeah, like if you really like, I'm almost a realist where it's like, look at the objective things and decide between those because the subjectiveness gets you in the weeds sometimes.
Yeah, but I kind of like being in the weeds a little bit.
Well, you're like a Northern Pike.
Yeah,
you
hang in there,
weeds,
and then I'll like store up all my ideas and thoughts, and then one day I just strike and buy something new.
And I'm like a lake trout, and I just cruise the depths. And when I see something I want, I get it.
Yeah, I got that. That's a really funny,
you know what I mean?
Perfect comparison. I'm like, especially like a pike. I'm all tense, and then I'm just
yeah.
One day
and you got a sharp knife. You know, the teeth.
Oh,
you know,
yeah, it's full.
You're a Northern Pike. Yeah.
No, thank you. I think my width would probably kind of go against that comparison, but we'll work on that later. But like, I don't feel like I think that there is comparison for sure. That's not healthy, and I'm also guilty of that, and I'm working on that. But it does bring me some level of extra in a hobby when I'm able to have something to go kind of back and forth about with. I don't know where that comes from. Like, I love to collect something. Like, if something is a collectible, I'm like, I'm in. Like, I gotta get all.
So you found a hobby on the downtime of the hobby.
I suppose, yeah.
Right.
It's just a different piece, and that's one of the things that I didn't realize about photography that was going to be a component of it. Literally, the reason I started photography at all, and I guess I can bring this up now because I brought up the two pieces of it, is people started taking pictures. Well, not started, like it didn't happen when I was doing it, but people would take pictures of their knives and just post every day like what they had in their pocket. Along with knives goes flashlights, pens, sometimes lighters, handkerchiefs, sometimes other defensive objects. I'll say it like that. But I was interested in, like, I'll show the community that I was involved with what I have. So I started using my phone and just like laying the stuff on the table, taking a picture. Nothing interesting, really. Maybe I'll put it on the snow to get kind of a little edgy.
Artsy. Ooh.
Yeah, maybe a log.
Everyone likes woodland.
Right. And then other people were getting like crazy shallow depths of field and like bokeh. I don't even know what that is at this point, but like this blurry light in the background looked cool. So I started messaging people that had good pictures. And I was like, how are you doing that? I was like, they're like, what camera are you using? And I was like, I don't know anything about cameras. What are you talking about? My phone has like 4 of them in it. Like, why would I get a camera? They're like, you need a camera. And not only do you need a camera, you need a lens. And I was like, this is dumb. And by the time, my father-in-law and mother-in-law had this T2i that they were not using for much. And I was like, can I borrow that? I have an idea. Excuse me. I might cough a bunch. And I was like, can I borrow that? And they're like, yeah. I'm not really using it. So I grabbed it. And at the time, I was a place I worked, had one of my coworkers was a photographer. And I was like, hey, I'm trying to do this, I don't know, shallow depth of field thing that people are talking about. I don't know what that is, but I want to do that. And he's like, I got a lens for you. And he let me borrow a nifty 50 for a while. I think I had it for like 4 or 5 months. I kind of felt bad. And I was like, do you want this back? He's like, no, like he's got a 7200. He's got like a 35-1.8 or something. I don't know. He's just got like, he's upgraded since the nifty 50, right? And started carrying that around every day to take pictures of knives. And then my wife happened to do photography in the past. Just nothing too crazy, just for fun. And I remember actually she got like the 55 to 250 kind of like
the kit lens. Yep.
So I found it. I still have it, or she still has it. It's downstairs. And I remember just throwing that in my backpack just to be like, I don't know, this might come in handy. And on the way home from work one day, I saw a red-tailed hawk. I was like, oh, like this 250 mil lens can probably get a good picture of that. Pulled over at a little nature-y place near where I used to live, and I chased this hawk around for like an hour. He'd land in a tree, then I'd spook him, and he'd run to another tree, and I'd go over there and I'd spook him, and he'd move somewhere else. I had
Sounds
the
like a
most...
hawk.
Right. I hate that they sit on the edge of the highway all day. Will not move from that spot unless they see like a vole or something. The moment... Actually, no, that's a lie. The moment I open the door... Yeah. I'll have pulled over and they'll be there still. The moment the door's gone...
You think it's like flow of traffic.
Yeah,
but it's not, because you could sit there, but as soon as you make that move and that door cracks open, gondo. So anyway.
Well, here's a tangent. So I've been into birds since I was like probably 9 or 10. Loved birds of prey the whole time. Something not recently, within the last couple of years anyway, that was pointed out to me that I can never not notice now, which is really funny. They always poop before they leave. Every single time.
Every time.
You never noticed it before, but now I can't not notice it. And I have so many shots of just right down Main Street of a stream.
One of those behavioral, things that you can expect.
Yeah.
Some movement after that. Yeah.
So back to the original train of thought. Chased this hawk around for like an hour. And it was probably the most fun I've had taking pictures of anything in the last few months. Like, it's fun. Like, I used to go on walks with the dog and my wife, and I'd bring like 5 knives in my pocket. And I'd like stick one in a tree, take a picture of it, or like lay them all down on a log. If anyone's interested, that Instagram account's still up, and it's Kyle_carries. Like, I'm carrying things. I haven't posted on it in a couple of years, but it's still up if you want to see those. But like, immediately when I found this hawk, I was like, this is something. This is what I want to do. And then that involves, all right, this 250 mil lens. Like, how can I get closer? Because I wasn't happy with how close I can get to this hawk. Mm-hmm. And I go through my pictures, and every once in a while look at that picture I took that I kind of liked, and I'm like, it's not good, but it inspired me to get to at least this point. And but then started the wheels about gear again, because like I had compared and contrasted all these knives to this point, and it was like, oh, like different cameras do different things and different lenses do different things. Mm-hmm. Ooh, new stuff. And so what camera photography or bird photography did for me was bring together my love of buying new shit, birds, and going outside. And I was like, this seems almost perfect for me. One of those 3 might be sort of more healthy than the other 2, but I do like all 3 of those things.
Right.
So it's been like a piece of it the whole time for me.
Okay.
But like,
That's fair.
and I do get that, like, you shouldn't compare where you are, like, in life versus someone else.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that philosophical by any
I
means.
know,
It's
but
yeah.
I feel like that's usually where that term is
Yeah. Yeah.
is
No,
used.
it's more comparisons thief of joy that it's just, just don't look at what other people are doing with different gear. Because I guarantee that you have way more gas in the tank. You have way more uh, image quality to pull out from a certain piece of gear. It's really hard to get everything out of a piece of gear. And the only way you can do that is it's kind of like that 10,000 hours thing, like where you're kind of a master at something after a certain amount of hours.
10,000 owls.
Hours? 10,000 owls
Oh.
will be wonderful. If you want to see 10,000 owls, it'll be up on our Angry Bird Pod Instagram. I'll make an AI of that for everyone to
Do that one picture of 10,000 owls.
Yeah, but it's more like, I think people get...
I think the name of this episode is 10,000 owls.
Do it. Yeah, perfect. I think a lot of people just get kind of wrapped up in that. So that's kind of why it's just like, just stay in your lane. Do your thing. And like you said, it's always been a kind of a third of why you enjoyed start doing the hobby. Certainly why you started, and you noticed that the buying gear and different gear does different things. My outlook was, how can I get into this the cheapest way? So we both have our routes, and one of my route was, how inexpensive can I get into this? And I did the same thing. I started with a T5i and a 55 250. I think I went to the 7300 like most people did. But yeah, like it was similar to me. It was just, how cheap can I continue to do this? And I still have that kind of ideology.
If there's something I want to absorb from you, and I think my wife and my wallet would appreciate this, is that.
I am frugal in that way.
I am not. I have to be, but I would like not to be.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I have to be, and I like to. Well, yeah, I like to be. I just like to be.
I think that's a healthier outlook, if I'm being
maybe, or maybe I'm limiting myself to such great joys of life. But guess what? I'll never know because I won't compare them.
See? That doesn't bother you?
No, it doesn't. Because as long as you're happy, because I'm satisfied for the most part with the work that I can produce with the camera that I have, and as long as I think that's a really important thing is like, certainly that there's that Dunning-Kruger kind of thing where you can have too much confidence and think you know more than what you know, or kind of get outside those boundaries. I've certainly gone through that. I'm gone down the hill and I'm trying to make my incline. I'm just starting that incline to realize that there's, you can get some nice quality out of the stuff that you have, and it's not like you're the only one that thinks that. That's kind of important too. I think to a degree.
Yeah, and honestly, the 100 or 400 has taught me that. I'll say that, because when I was wanting to switch from Sony, I was like, I am absolutely not going to trade this awesome white painted monstrosity of a lens for this black piece of plastic. I'm not doing it. It's f8, it's versus f6.3, just not happening. So at that point, our mutual friend Alex was talking up the Sigma 60 to 600 on the EF, and I was not really keen on adapting something, but to my decision, there wasn't much else in the amount that I had that I could buy that was equivalent, and that to me was an equivalent jump, like a lateral move. Like I wasn't losing anything by going with that lens. The only thing that lens, well, not the only thing, the major thing that lens had over the 200 to 600 was weight. That lens,
that's a big one.
Is a monster. So
especially comparing it to the A9 as well.
Yeah,
you have the it's considerably heavier than the APS-C body that you were looking at.
But that people shit all over Sony ergos, but I don't know if I'm the only one that's defending them, but I had no problem with them. I
think it's because it's super. Every button can be customizable, so you can kind of change the ergos in your favor by having the whole thing customizable to where your fingers land.
I like to have the problem where there's a button that I don't have something to put there.
You need something there?
Yeah, if the button is customizable, I will make it something else.
I have 7 buttons I don't even use.
I use all of mine and I miss everything.
1, 2, 3. I use like 4 buttons out of the potential 9 or whatever. I have 8 or 9.
Do you want to know how I have?
2 of them are autofocus. 1 switches my center point, my autofocus point to the center, which you just kind of. When was that? When did we meet up for that? When we were shooting the redneck grebes.
Oh, that was at CSS.
It was a suggestion that you gave me, so that was recent. So I think I've added one just by talking to you, which is not good. Stop doing that to me.
Yes.
Yeah,
starting to influence. I'll break them down. Do you want to know? I think from my head, because I don't have my R7 in the room with me right now for some reason. I think I could tell you what all of the customizable buttons do if I thought really hard. Do you want to know?
Sure.
Is that fun?
Do you guys want to know? Well,
yeah. Post in chat if you want to. If I should
skip through this part if you don't want to know.
Yeah, turn this off. Apparently. So I just think. Also, not only do I have all the buttons set, but I have like 3 pages of custom my menu stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to change this.
Quick function stuff.
I change that thing.
Yeah.
But like on the front, there's a button straight behind the grip on the R7, and recently I've changed that to just be whatever the autofocus point is, not tracking. So it's just like if I have it on a small spot or like an area, it just doesn't track the subject. Right. It's just whatever in that box. By the shutter button is the multifunction button that switches between all of the focus points. So it's like I just cycle through, and I have turned some of them off and turned them back on and turned them off just so you don't have to cycle through as many. Then I have the autofocus button on the back that does tracking, and then the star button does. It's kind of my oh shit something's flying button, so it just turns everything up to like faster speeds for flying things, which I never use. The one underneath of that is the dots in like a cross. I think it's like focus point adjustment initially.
Right.
But for me, it's my exposure comp. So I hit that and then roll the wheel by my finger, by the trigger or the shutter button to change.
How do you remember all this?
Focus comp? I don't know. It's literally sitting on my desk at work, and I just like fiddle around with it.
How do you remember it all out in the field?
That's sort of part of the problem. Is I'm like, I should change this, and then I gotta go this one.
My friend Mike, not to get on too much of a tangent, it's on the same scale, but my friend Mike, we go out and do loon photography. We haven't done much this year together. He had a newborn, but he would bring a ton of things, and it would turn out to be too many things, and too many things actually turned out to be a negative.
Yeah, I get that.
Is that a thing?
Is too many things a negative?
Yeah.
Well, getting back to sort of early in this podcast,
right?
I kind of felt that way when I had the 800 sitting there, the R8 and the R7 with
2 kits. Yeah.
Yeah. And then for about a week, well, I guess it hasn't even been a week, like 4 days, I was like, gotta get the 200 to 600 or 200 to 800, sorry. So I'm like, I posted one of my expensive knives for sale and then decided to kind of move the R7 and probably the 800, but I was going to do it in a specific order. So I didn't have anything. Like if we wanted to go out, I wanted to have the 800 as opposed to if I didn't have the 200, 800 yet.
Right. But
now I'm kind of reversing that decision because like the main driving factor here is the knife that I would have to sell. I don't want to. I really enjoy it. And what happened was I polished it up, made it look all pretty for the pictures.
So you're going to sell it, yeah?
Yeah. And then I was like, look how good it
beautiful.
looks.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It like,
glistening.
its color is kind of like a aquamarine kind of teal, and it's when you anodize titanium, and you kind of touch it, like the oils from your hand kind of mute the color, but you take some Windex to it and clean it off, and it just like pops. I was like, oh, look at it, like it looks good. I like opened it and closed it. I cleaned it, and I was like, this is great.
This is
like,
brand new knife again.
Yeah. But then, like, even so another reason that I want to have more stuff is in case something breaks, I'm not out. And in my current situation, the R8's got to go back to Canon.
Yeah.
So I have the R7 still. I'm like, oh. But then that was the one I was considering selling, and it's still like my trusty boy.
Right.
It's just right there, ready to go.
Right.
Never once caused me a problem. My buddy Will, however, his R7's been a pain in his ass. I don't know why. I feel bad for him, but I think it's broke twice, at least. Both times sort of water related, maybe, but also not. Like he sent it back once, and they just said like the board got fried and put a new one in. And the second time it got wet and it didn't
was like
turn
the gas, like the gasket wasn't like the weather sealing wasn't like kind of installed right or something. Wasn't that what we were talking?
That's
about?
what we think. Excuse me. On this particular time,
right?
Where because they were in it the first time to replace the board that got borked,
right?
Something might not have been put back.
Because it seemed like it happened too easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he just dried it out, and it's been okay since. But I don't know. But like mine, like I haven't really put it through that. But I literally carried it for a week every day in San Francisco. It bounced around on my back. It banged off of rocks and probably a boat at some point. Buildings. Like, I don't. Okay, here's another thing. Here's the thing. Do you get sentimental about objects?
No.
See, I do.
No. I don't get sentimental about much. I'm I'm not an empath. I'm not sure if I have feelings. I'm not sure if I really have feelings.
This podcast is turning into therapy, I think, for you.
No, I don't get attached to things very much. Maybe my kids. I'll have to get back to you on that. I'll have to get back to you on that one, but maybe the kids.
You got a podcast with your little boy now, from what I hear.
Did you hear that? That was cute, wasn't it? Anyway, they won't understand. But so you might have been trying to make a point or whatever. But what would the 200-800? What would the 200-800 when it comes to TTP? We're gonna get back to TTP when we're all shooting.
Okay.
What would have it added? Would you think it would have simplified a few things where you weren't bouncing back and forth? Because I find when I had two kids, I had to focus on like the R10 and the 100-400, where it's going to be a specific types of shots, and I was going to use that camera until I was done and satisfied, and then I'm going to grab the next one. You can't flip back and forth. You kind of have to approach your angle of attack and go with it and be done with it, and then not put it away, but just do it in stages. The 200-800 certainly would do that, but it almost seems like a lot of the issues was the coloring of the photos, which is almost sounds like color cast.
Yeah,
because you got a lot of whites when it comes to shorebirds. You have a lot of whites in the water. Certainly when the sun gets high enough up, you don't have those blues anymore. You get the metallics. So those metallics will take on the reflections of if there's buildings, if there's the foliage around it, the sun itself, and it'll actually change the colors and kind of make things warmer, or whites not to be white. You know what I mean? So I don't think a lens would have changed that, but I think it would have at least helped you be a little more versatile and take multiple, different types of shots of the same scene and kind of dissect the scene a little bit more.
I'm not artistic.
No, I don't think I am either, to be honest.
I'm
all technique. I'm all taught technique. It's not something that comes natural. I try to work on it, and I work on it, whether I'm doing it good or I'm not doing it well. It's all worked on. It's all acquired. It's not natural. It doesn't feel natural. I'll tell you that. I see some people doing it, and everyone's like so artsy, and sometimes I don't even care for them.
I've had people tell me they like my eye for art for these bird pictures, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I really don't.
You are doing art. You're just doing like what I do. It's more documentation.
Yeah. You had mentioned, you know what's funny? You blew my mind kind of last time we even had this podcast. Because you said that maybe, but you said something about like I think I was describing what I like and how I like to shoot, and you had just said like there's nothing wrong, or you like taking a good like ID or like bird book.
Yeah, like
picture.
we call them eBird shots.
Yeah.
When you go on eBird and you see the cover pages or you see the multimedia on there, it's all within a certain type of, template.
Yeah. So what I'll say is I kind of took that as a compliment in a way, but I didn't know that that's kind of what I was doing. But I'll say that my ideal shot is like one step away from that, because if you look at most ID shots, it's just like side on, head kind of sideways, so you can see markings in the face.
Yep. Plumage is huge. Yep.
Which I don't have any problem with. Like those are all good shots, but I want like a little bit of something, them doing
like action
something
or behavior.
Yes, to both.
You need
sometimes
F4 then. F11, F8 ain't gonna do it.
Absolutely, yeah. Like obviously, I can't do it with my kit right now. Like I need different stuff.
That's why you don't see a lot of action from me. That's why I'm trying to add a little bokeh. That's why I'm trying to add a little. I don't know. I'm trying to add something.
That's what I'm saying about art, though, because you're thinking about that. I'm not. Like, I should be.
I think I'm thinking about it because I've shot more shorebirds. I've been out there more. I've experimented more with the front lit and using the location, the habitat that they're in, and you only can do so much of that. So then you start to kind of walk around and try to look at the other side of the bird. And then it dawns on you that, there's more that I can do here with the same lens. And then it starts a whole new kind of like era of now, for me anyway, trying to focus and like get that tighter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was funny. I showed Will a picture I took, and he was saying that he's like, I shot that same bird from a different angle, but I didn't get the shot I wanted. And I was like, the shot you wanted? I just point at a bird that's moving around and hope one of the 30 frames per second or 40 frames per second took something cool. Like occasionally, usually what I do is there's a bird, right? I take some pictures of the bird so that I know that I've seen the bird. I can show someone that I've seen X bird. And then I'll go closer, take some more pictures, lay down, take some more pictures. Once I've taken about several thousand, then I'm like, what else can I do with this? But usually I'll have 3,800 of it standing there or running across. Right. It'll be
gotta
like,
make sure you have one. That's what you want.
Or 14.
You don't want to go home with that overconfidence of, I got the shot. And then you get home, you're like, I didn't get the shot. Yeah. That's the worst feeling. Certainly when you're starting out, certainly like the first year or two, sometimes you get a little overconfident. You're like, really cool. I didn't get the shot.
There's a really cool YouTube video I'm going to reference and then not know who it was by.
Easy on the copywriting, all right? Yeah, I do know. Yeah, I do know Martin Hilmer. Yeah. Yep.
So it's not his video, but he was in it. And he was, I think, in Costa Rica with like another guy who was self-proclaimed as like this amateur photographer. And Morton Hilmer is like a pro.
Yep.
And they went on the same like river cruise. And they're taking pictures of like monkey and then like bird and then something else. And the guy who is the self-proclaimed amateur whose video it was, I wish I could remember maybe I'll find it and put it somewhere. But he was like me.
Link in the bio.
Yeah, link downstairs. He was just like spraying the block with all of the FPS that his camera would give. Like see something, just rattle, rattle, rattle. Something else, rattle, rattle, rattle. But then afterwards, after the tour is over, him and Morton kind of sat down and were like, what'd you get? And Morton took like a couple hundred shots. And each shot was a banger because he just knew what he wanted, what he was looking for. Like he was waiting for the moment. And this is, I think, before like pre-capture. Like this was on a DSLR, I think. So it wasn't even like he just had to wait for it and got some before and after. Like it was just nailed every time. And the guy was like, that's actually crazy. Like, I didn't expect that. Because he thought
I think that's a lot of our goals, though. Whether we know it or not, I think that's not the end goal, but that's the goal to get to the point where less culling, more confident in your shot.
I have gigs of stuff that's absolute trash taking up digital space for no reason.
Delete it all.
I've almost done it a whole bunch.
Here's gonna be another here's a quick little side tangent.
Mhm.
If your hard drive went down right now and you lost everything that you shot since you started, how would it make you feel?
It depends on how long after it happened you asked me that question.
Right now, it just happened.
Devastated.
Yeah, see, I don't care. I'll do it all again. I'll do it all again. I want to do it all again.
But I would there would be a healing for sure. Because
That's one reason I do post to Instagram is it's kind of like and I call or archive a lot of photos. I think I have 1,400 photos or 1,500 photos in archive, and I might only have 140 that are 150 that are up, and that's by design because I still want to showcase and have something flow a little bit, but I also want to make sure that I can retain those memories because one day it all might go away. Like I don't do anything redundant. I don't shoot redundant. I don't copy files. I don't have multiple gigs and multiple hard drives. It could all be lost tomorrow, and I'd be so willing to do it all again, and certainly wouldn't take as long because I wouldn't have to learn behaviors. I wouldn't have to learn locations. I wouldn't have to know when loons have babies. I know all that. So it would certainly be a lot easier and faster to obtain. But man, sometimes a clean, fresh slate sounds good. I don't know if it feels good. Sounds good to me.
A brand new hard drive is just like, ooh, I could fill this up with so much garbage.
Yeah. It also could take an early nap.
Yeah. You're not wrong. You're definitely not wrong.
So ultimately, because this was more based on the TTP, Tommy Thompson Park, are you satisfied with some photos?
Yes.
Okay, good.
But I wish
it wasn't completely blown out,
No. I wish I got more. Actually, you know what's funny? The ones that I'm more happy with were shot later. Mm-hmm. And then now I'm like, why did I have to get up so early?
That's hilarious. That's funny. Whereas I'm like, why didn't that morning light last a little longer?
I got the bright noon sun just straight down on that semi-palmated plover, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Now you guys I gotta paint a picture for you. We're laying on a beach now on the east side.
You should not paint this. It's disgusting.
And Kyle is we're all taking shots at a semi-palmated plover.
Before you get to the punchline, stop, because I'm going to say the beginning of my thought, and then you can punchline it.
And we're all shooting the same bird. It's the only one on that side. There's a couple people walking around, but there's only one bird, and it's kind of down by the water, and we're kind of not circling it, but we've got a semicircle kind of around it as it moves around and pauses. And Kyle's taking the high ground, and
yeah,
he's beside him.
So I'm going to go up a little to its left and kind of shoot. Actually, this is one time where I was like, I'm going to get some water movement behind it.
You're shooting into the lake, yeah, where I'm shooting adjacent, yeah.
Yeah, down towards the water. So I was like, I'm going to get up higher on the beach so I can look down. But at the same time, I'm looking at this semi-palmated plover because I don't want it to go away. So I lay down on the beach. Eye on the bird, lay down, start taking some shots. After about 6 shots, I'm like, something stinks. So I look underneath.
He's not talking about my shots, guys.
No, my shot. But I was like, so I'm like, something stinks. And I'm like, because I had been avoiding cormorants all morning, laying in dead ones, I was like, I'm not gonna. I knew I didn't lay in one. So, I didn't. Something stunk. So I just looked underneath me, and I was like, nothing. I don't think I laid in anything. Maybe I laid in something earlier, and it's just on my sweater or something. Look to my left, and what do I see? Probably the deadest, oldest, bloatedest, openest raccoon corpse
It was
I've
stage.
ever seen.
It was stage 4.
It was
of decay.
Oh, I was gonna say it was terminal like a year ago.
The belly of it was so razor thin that it was mostly transparent. You could kind of see into
Oh yeah.
the raccoon laying on its back, smiling still. They always seem to be smiling.
If I would have like opened my arms like I was gonna give you a hug, my left arm would have been in it.
Yeah,
Is how close I was. Unbeknownst
it was
to me.
raunchy. It was raunchy smelling. And what brought us down there was the American mink that was scurrying around and eating and catching sunfish or gobies. But
That was a goby, yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite part about that raccoon is I was like, "Yo, Will, like, come check this out." And he walks over, he's like, "Ew, that's gross." Immediately bends down and starts getting like low down shots of this raccoon, like just immediately.
Ooh, that's gross. Let's document it.
Exactly. He works in film, so it's like perfect. Makes sense for him.
Right.
And then on the way home, he's like scrolling through his phone, like looking at the pictures he's taken, and he goes, "Well, unfortunately, I think the best shots I took today were that raccoon." I was like, that's bad. That's terrible.
You just needed a subject that would stay still.
I'm sure he got great shots. I'm sure he did. It was great.
I love you, Will. I really like Will. Actually, it was the first time I met him, and I may not be honest online. If I didn't like somebody, I would never bring it up. But Will's good stuff. Will is very good stuff. I enjoyed his company.
I don't know if Will's going to listen to this, and I don't know if I should say this next part.
He's going to listen to it. I'm going to send him the link. Okay,
I would too. Because I don't care if he knows this part, but I think it's kind of funny. So I was in Will's wedding about a year ago, and I knew he was getting married for months. I was happy for him. How Will came into my life was he's my brother-in-law's more or less best friend. And we started going to like car shows and stuff together and started hanging out. He started getting into photography a little later. And then
drop his handle.
I think it's Will S. Robs. I don't know if there's photography on the end of that.
Okay.
I believe it's just Will S. Robs.
Keep talking, I'll look.
He's getting married. And I'm like, that's great for Will. And like I've been friends with him for a few years at this point, and it was kind of 50-50. I thought whether I was in his wedding or not. And then he asked me to be in his wedding. And it was really cool but I didn't know that we were on that level of friendship yet because he had just been my brother-in-law's friend.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, like I'm friends with Will now. Like it was kind of the point in which that I knew I was friends with him, but I wasn't sure yet. But I knew then because he like you wouldn't ask just a random schmo. Right. Maybe you would, but then I was like, oh, like Will's my friend because I used to always refer to him as my brother-in-law's name is Matt because I have 37 Matts in my life. But I was like, he's Matt's friend Will. Like that's how I'd refer to him. Mm-hmm. But now he's my friend Will. Right. Which is a cool transition.
Which is Will S. Rob's photo on Instagram.
Ah, there is a photo. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, good man. He's a good man.
Yeah. And Teddy, also great.
Teddy's great. I have a plan. I have a trip. We're recording on a Wednesday. I'm actually leaving Friday. Tuesday. We're recording on a Tuesday. I'm leaving Friday to head down to Miami for a cruise for my 10-year anniversary with my wife. And then after that, when I get back, I think it's the October 5th. So it's a weekend after I get back. I'm heading with Teddy and my friend Mark Bernards on Instagram, and another friend, Keith McGarity, on Instagram. And we're going up to Algonquin, and we're going to do some kayaking and hopefully some fall moosing, and see what we can get ourselves into. The Gonk, yeah. So I got a couple trips coming up. That's why we tried to squeeze this one in. We were going to record on the weekend, but we had to push it till today. Yeah, Kyle was trying to die on me, which I'm like, we just started this pod. Like, give the people what they want.
One episode nearly killed me, man.
Yeah. Well, he is doing a lot of the grunt work. I'm trying to keep on the socials, but yeah, he's more of the technical guy, being the IT.
Yeah, you get
that he is.
That dreaded message, like, "Hey, Kyle, my computer's broken. My new mic won't be recognized by my computer."
Yeah, he's kind of making fun. I did have a problem for a couple of days getting it to record, but nonetheless I figured it out.
You did it. Yep, to your credit, you did it all on your own. I didn't even have the team viewer in.
And that gave you a little more credit or a little more confidence in me.
Yeah, a little bit.
You're like, oh, this guy's a fucking
You turned it off and on again, and that didn't work, and then you proceeded to figure it out. So
I did, and it was something I have never experienced before, but god damn it, I did it.
Yeah, so I think going forward, we'll probably try to stick to like a 2 to 3 week kind of posting schedule.
2 would be nice, but again,
2's I think the goal.
Things happen.
If I die or you go on another anniversary cruise, like it might step in the way of that. But
yeah,
hopefully every 2 weeks is the goal. But I'm gonna give myself that third week just for technical difficulties. Once again, I'm Kyle. You can find me at Kyle Boehm Photography. Dots in between Kyle and Boehm. Boehm. You can find Matt at _Matt Parrish on Instagram.
So easy.
If you do, for some reason, want to email us, we have an email address. And I'm a big dumb idiot and I forgot to write it down. But I think it's the Angry Birds Pod Show?
The Angry Bird Pod Show.
At gmail.com.
At gmail.com.
So you can email that.
I'll put it in the bio of the Angry Bird Pod Show Instagram account, which is Angry Bird Pod.
You know what I should do? You should get that 10,000 Owls AI picture, and I should get a picture of the dead raccoon from Will.
Okay.
And we'll post them both up there.
We'll post that, and then we'll post 3 or 4 of our shots, and we'll do it in one post because you can do like up to 10, right?
Yeah,
so we'll do that, and that'll be that'll be the post for this when we drop this episode.
Yeah, it'd be really excellent if y'all could like share this with people who you might think be interesting,
or subscribe,
or subscribe. Why not?
We're gonna get better. My vocals are so much better now already. Think about it.
Just
You'll
on
be able
that
to hear
alone.
my bullshit in HD.
Bullshit in HD.
It is.
You should get that in the logo.
Yeah, it is called the Angry Bird Pod because I do expect eventually, when I get more comfortable, to start ripping and tearing on a few topics.
I'll get high again and go on another rant about bird short forms.
I've even considered a solo pod where I might just go on and rant for like a 25-minute pod, but we'll see. Again, it's one of these things we don't have to talk about on air, but just throwing some things out to the universe there, the Angry Bird Pod Show universe of things that we plan to do and schedule, and I hope we stayed on topic a little bit better this time.
We'll find out. We'll keep you posted on the reviews.
We love the critique. Yeah, we love the reviews.
Keep it coming.
We've had a lot of personal reviews. I'm not sure if they've actually been online, but dropping into our DMs and giving us little reviews and
slide right in there. Just give us any bit of information.
Yeah, we're learning too, so we want to know what you guys want. We'd like to see.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
It's been a blast. Thank you, Matt. Actually, legitimately, thank you for pushing me over the edge because I've been wanting to do something like this for a while, and
it's fun, isn't it? At least
it is. The ball's rolling now, and I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Talk to you later, Matt.
All right. Love you, Kyle.
Love you too, buddy.
See you guys later.